Hello, and a warm welcome to this episode of Fly Mum Fly. I'm your host, Bobby Chegwin, and today I am so happy to have Beccy Freeman on with me. Now, Beccy is from Breathe and Blossom in Australia, and she's a mum, a wellness health coach, a counselor, and a candle maker. She's really passionate about empowering women with natural, low toxic wellness options, which I think is so important, and guiding them to make informed decisions for their health. She believes in self nurturing, recognizing that by filling your own cup, you can serve others better. Beccy, hello. And I should say good morning because it's 7 a.m. in Victoria in Australia.
It absolutely is. And good morning to you. I am so happy to be here.
Yes, we should just probably share this that Beccy and I actually did this maybe, was it 2 or 3 months ago? And we had the best talk. It just was authentic. It just went with the flow. We didn't, because I don't script anything. We had this wonderful chat about wellness, and there were so many aha moments for me listening to what you do. And then something happened with the recording and we only got 6 minutes of it. So we waited until today, and now Beccy is back. So she's so good to get up at, whatever the crack of dawn in Australia and join us today, because self-care is really something that I think I would be surprised if we don't think about it every so often, if not every day, in this phase of life now that we're empty nest mums. One thing I know from my point of view that it's not habitual for me to put myself first in relation to looking after my physical body. Emotions and mental I'll go for, but I sort of
Yeah.
disregard the physical stuff because I think it maybe takes a little bit more time and effort. So I love that you have so much great information to share. Just so you can get to know our audience and our audience can get to know you, tell us about your empty nest situation. Who did you have at home and who do you no longer have at home?
All right. So I am a mum to three boys.
Uh-huh.
And so after, so my experience really of being a true empty nester was when, of course, my youngest left home. And that happened sort of about 15 or 16 months after a whole major life transformation for me, which was the breakdown of my very long marriage.
Yeah.
And so this change all kind of came about quite quickly and was a huge and positive transition in my life. And so suddenly here I am, and it's just my youngest son and I, and we are starting a whole new life together. And it was just the most miraculously liberating time for me. Not to say that there wasn't some, grief of endings, but it was still a time where I really, that last year that we had together while he was studying his final year of high school was just the most fun time. And but ultimately, Bobby, I knew that he had made no secret about the fact, because we live in a very small rural town here in northeast Victoria, and there was never any hint that he was going to even stick around to get his year 12 results. Like, he was gone.
Right.
he he couldn't wait to leave. He really couldn't. To go down to experience, the big smoke life in Melbourne, just as his older brothers had done, and so I took that time in that last year, not only to be fully present with my youngest and have all of those, create those wonderful memories of just him and I, which was a really, really special time, but I was always very conscious that he was going. There was no
Yeah.
two ways about that. And so I really, really reflected on how that was going to impact me and what I was going to do. Because
So you mentioned that you had this big awakening, I guess, this feeling of liberation and the level of excitement. And I do get that because obviously going through a divorce is never going to be rainbows and butterflies and all things nice, it can be so challenging. However, you did have a sense that there was opportunity within the crisis that you were going through. Had you always known at some stage of your life you would venture into something that made you feel this way, or was that the catalyst that pushed you even into initially thinking about it?
That was the catalyst that pushed me into even thinking about it. It never,
Right.
when you're down there in the trenches and you've got young children or teenagers, I think that the thoughts of what comes next doesn't tend to occur, or it didn't for me anyway.
Yeah, yeah. I know with empty nesting, and I write about this in the post nest plan, that I never really stopped in the busyness of day to day life and the stress that can come with being a mum. And I was a single mum for 5 years. It was the thoughts often went to, oh, imagine the freedom you're going to have when the kids have grown up and they've moved out. And it was kind of like this fantasy that I had of how it would be like. And I never stopped to consider, oh my God, now I'm starting to laugh like a lunatic. I never stopped to consider what would actually happen. So I
Mm.
know from reading your website, breatheandblossom.com.au, that you grew up with parents who were very much into the natural environment. So tell us about how you started your business and I guess your why behind it. What was it calling to you to do?
Okay, I love this question because yes, my parents were very much, back in the sort of 70s, very hippie. And we moved to growing up in quite a sort of conservative town. So mum and dad were very much the odd ones out. We were on a little tiny package of land where we farmed organically. And so for that township and community, we were definitely oddities,
Yeah.
which I think it's so special now because they grew to be very, very beloved in the community. And it was always a bit of a running joke, the hippies. So that was very special. In terms of how my journey started, it was very much so during that time before my youngest left home, I had reached for essential oils.
Yep.
And so I had, just thrown myself wholehearted. It felt very right for me that this was my special thing. This was what was going to help and support me get through the inevitable uh, grief when my youngest left home. So I latched
Mhm.
onto those essential oils and I just used them. I learned about them, all of the wondrous goodness that are essential oils for your mental health, your physical health, all of your cleaning, all of that kind of stuff. Every way that you can use essential oils in your life, I learned about and I practiced. And so
Mhm.
that's really Breathe and Blossom was born out of my desire to share the goodness of essential oils with with a wider audience, with a wider community, and to really just support women generally who are looking for alternatives that are low tox and to incorporate these essential oils into their lives, into their homes and their family lives. And yeah, so really to educate them. And so Breathe and Blossom was then born, Bobby, from my desire to get a little bit creative with essential oils. And so I created essential oil candles. And the reason
Okay.
because I love, a lot of people love candles, but
Yeah.
the candles that you buy in the store are generally loaded with what they call fragrance. Now, fragrance is obviously what makes them smell so delicious. However, it is also chock full of synthetic, man-made chemicals that
Okay. So
are,
tell us what.
mm,
Sorry, I was just going to ask. It's so interesting because I thought if it says all natural and it says all natural fragrance, I kind of think, okay, well, then there's nothing here that's going to harm us. But the idea of low tox is obviously one of your values. How do fragrances, how can they mess with our bodies, especially as women who are, and I'm guessing the audience around 40, 45 plus? How can fragrances mess with our bodies and maybe minds and maybe emotions at this stage of life?
Yeah, well, probably the biggest one that we need to understand and really know is the hormone disrupting dis- disrupting chemicals that are in fragrances. And so that
Mm-hmm.
messes, like, we're already vulnerable because we are heading to, we're in that really perimenopause phase of our lives. So our hormones are already in a bit of free fall. They are doing weird and wonderful things. I don't know about the wonderful, but definitely the weird things. And so when we unbeknownst, we use all of these, like, I know that there's women, we apply about 100 different chemicals in terms of a woman's self, what do you call it, routine, like face, all of that personal care routine. The end of the day, a woman will have over 100 chemicals on her body if she's not aware. Now, that's frightening when you think about the endocrine disrupting qualities of these chemicals, not to mention the carcinogenic nature of a lot of the chemicals.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, all of the breathing, like physically, like it can irritate airways, all of that kind of stuff. Like they're serious, like this. And this is the thing, all natural fragrance, the labels are not regulated, and neither is, like,
Okay.
and again, fragrance is a blanket term for hundreds of chemicals, and manufacturers simply list that ingredient as a single ingredient, which says fragrance, because it's classified as what they call a trade secret. So they don't want to tell you what's in it so that no one else can steal their ideas. So that's how they get away with not disclosing each and every chemical that is in that fragrance.
It's pretty shocking because, as I mentioned off air before we started recording, I'm doing a 21-day sugar detox at the moment, and I'm really loving it. I must say, there are changes on so many different levels, not just physical. And I think I'm going through some sort of emotional, mental, and spiritual journey at the same time, because I do think it does work on all levels. But getting back to what you're saying about the labels, it is so important. I've been in the grocery store and I've been picking up things, and anything that has any added sugars, obviously I'm putting back. But it's so interesting to see where the sugar is hidden, and among all the preservatives, additives, color. Over here, they have high fructose corn syrup. So it's just all this stuff that is shoved in. And so there's a lady called Sky Dale who's running this program. And there's a weekly call, group call, and she was saying how important it is to shop the perimeter of the supermarket, because in the middle, and it's the analogy we can use, it similar to the fragrances, you'd have all your essential oils and the like all around the outside, and then you'd have the majority of what's there is processed crap
Processed.
that does us more harm than good. So how do you use these oils?
I use them in just a multitude of ways, but you could. The number one is I have diffusers throughout the house, which you drop a
Yep.
few, and that's basically I think most people are familiar with the water, cold air diffusers, so that doesn't work. So a lot of people, once upon a time, people used to burn, like have hot oil burners, but in fact,
Mhm.
sometimes the natures of the essence of the oil in some oils can actually be broken down by heat. So it's always better to go with your steam diffuser, which is it's basically cold. So diffusers is the number one. Before I came on, just to settle myself and ground myself and make sure I was all prepared and in the best space possible, I actually dropped some frankincense, lavender, and a blend called Adaptive, which is like an anti-anxiety blend, a calming
Yeah.
blend, into the palm of my hands and rub them together. And then you take some really big sniffs, like no one can see me, I don't think, but big sniffs from my hands. So that's called,
Yeah.
we call that cup and smell. So you put it in the palm of your hand, rub it together, and then have some really big deep breaths. So that's a really great way to get them into your space, immediately. But you can also use them, like, instead of, say, for example, instead of having a nasty chemical smelly thing in the toilet, I just drop a few essential oils in on the inside of the toilet roll. And then
Yes.
my bathroom smells beautifully fresh for the life of that toilet roll. So the cardboard bit, yep, that one. You can drop them on cotton pads or anything like that to have around in rooms. You can drop them, have a little china dish in your fridge with some lemon essential oil, so your fridge smells beautiful and fresh. So you could.
A lot of
There's
different
really
ways.
a lot of different ways.
Do you ever do this? I've heard of it, and I did try it way back when we were in Sydney. Someone said put oils onto cotton balls and stick them in your vacuum, and then when the air's blowing, it's sucking and then blowing out air. It actually makes your home environment smell really lovely.
I do that with the filter in my vacuum. So I put drops
Yeah,
on
yeah,
the
you do.
filter. Yeah. So
That's a good.
the same thing.
So let's just take one thing, anxiety. A lot of us suffer from anxiety. So you did mention a few oils, and from my understanding, there are oils that suit different needs. But let's just take,
Yes.
if someone came to you and said, Beccy, I have anxiety, whether it's chronic or not, but it's actually detrimental to my life experience at the moment. What would you recommend? And is there a brand that is better than the other? And what should we be looking, sorry, I've got a million questions for you. What should we be looking at on the labeling so we understand that they are all natural essential oils? So if you can share what someone with anxiety would be wanting to do.
All right. So there's a few questions there. The first thing, in terms of what brand, I personally use doTERRA, and I use
Mm-hmm.
doTERRA and recommend doTERRA because I know of the stringent testing and quality control that doTERRA have, and put each bottle of their oils and each batch through. So each batch,
Okay.
each bottle of essential oils in doTERRA has a batch number. And if you wanted to, I've never done this, I trust that this is the case, that you can actually put that little number in and find out all of its details. So they're very stringent and transparent in terms of what testing they do with their oils. And for me, that sits right. I'm not going to say that other, that's just what I choose and I believe and I recommend. In
Okay.
terms, so that's that question. In terms of labeling of essential oils, the things that you need to be really mindful of is that it's only got essential oils. So the label should have, here's a lavender I've got here.
Yeah.
So the label should have its common name, so lavender, and then it should have its botanical name, which is
Mm-hmm.
Lavandula augustifolia, and
Mm-hmm.
then and that's all it should have. And you look at
Okay.
ingredients, that is all it will have. So
Mm-hmm.
if you have a bottle of what you believe is essential oil, and it lists anything other than that oil, then you've probably picked up a blend which has been
Mm-hmm.
adulterated with, like, basically diluted.
Okay.
So
Okay.
if anything says essential oils and fragrance, then you put it back quickly.
Right. Right. Okay. So
Yeah.
that's the name, like lavender, and what lavender's botanical name is. That they're the only two things that would be on that bottle, and you don't want it
Yeah.
to be mixed with anything else. Okay. And if someone had
Correct.
anxiety, what would you recommend?
Lavender.
Yeah. Okay.
Lavender's a great, it's an all-rounder, and you would
Yeah.
mix this with something like I mean, and that's the other thing, you can actually pre-purchase blends that are designed to support, so you can get it like a calming blend, which would have say lavender, it would have something woody, which is like grounding, and yeah, so oils like that. Frankincense is a beautiful one, and so if we say that lavender is like the queen of oils, I would say frankincense is the king, because
Right.
what's so magic about frankincense, and I love this fact so much, is that frankincense actually amplifies and what's the complements, and so any therapeutic benefit that a particular essential oil might have, depending on what you're using. But let's go with lavender for the sake of anxiety and calming, because it calms down
Yeah.
sleep. It's great for sleep as well. So if you're adding in the frankincense, Bobby, it actually elevates those therapeutic and amplifies those therapeutic qualities.
I love that.
Frankincense is amazing.
That's fantastic. Now, doTERRA is a worldwide product that's distributed everywhere. Yeah, I mean, I think
Yeah,
I've heard of it over here as well. So, okay, so that's for those that are
yeah.
listening, it's DOTERRA. So that would be for the essential
Yes,
oils.
yes.
Now, what I'd like to talk about briefly is that last time we were chatting, you made reference to a term that I had never heard of before, and at the time, I am glad to say sleeping a little bit better now, but I really think it's got to do with detoxing my physical body. However, I could do with some extra help along those lines, because sometimes I still do wake up. And I think just preparing my room would be fantastic. So last time you talked about the term, or you used the term, sleep hygiene. So if you can
Yeah.
just let our listeners know what that is all about, because it was new to me.
Okay, so sleep hygiene basically, I love talking about this. So basically, it is about having good sleep practices. So being
Okay.
very aware and being very conscious of the things that you are doing leading up to when you expect your body to go to sleep. So you need to
Mhm.
have a bit of a nurturing sequence along the way. So that might include things like dimming lights down an hour and a half before bedtime. It would, for me, it would include going and switching my diffuser on my bedside on. And so in that diffuser, I particularly like lavender. I particularly like vetiver, Roman chamomile. These are all really good oils to support sleep.
Okay.
You would then, you would then make conscious choice. Like, I think you would know about blue light, and the
Yeah.
harmful impacts that blue light has on your melatonin generation, which is basically the hormone or chemical that your body releases when it's time for sleep. And so blue
Okay.
light will impact that negatively. So it's about being really conscious of reducing your exposure to blue light, so turning off screen time and maybe picking up a book or listening to some calming music or something like that. So those are the things that are good sleep hygiene practices. And so it's about being really finding out what works for you, because everyone's a little bit different. So the things that
Yeah.
I've talked about are what I do, but everyone needs to find a practice. And the thing is, Bobby, once you do that and you start very consciously doing those 1, 2, 3, 4 steps before bed every night, then you're telling your subconscious, oh, we're winding down for the day, we're getting ready for sleep.
Fantastic. So one thing I'm curious about is temperature. Is there a better temperature to
There is,
sleep with? Is it?
yeah,
Is
I
it
think it's
colder or warmer?
colder, definitely.
Yay, I win. My husband wants it much warmer. I need the aircon to be 68 degrees, which is, someone please work that out to be Celsius. I think maybe it's about 2018. I don't know.
Yeah,
Is it 18? Oh,
18.
you know.
I,
Oh, good.
no, well, I know that optimal temperature is 18 to 20.
Okay, okay. So I'll double check that after we finish today. But I love it really super cold, and in fact, in the middle of winter here, like it can be January, and here in Ohio, at nighttime, it's not strange for it to get down to like -10 or something at night. But I'll crack the window because I just love the idea of crisp, cold air and to be cold but underneath a blanket that's going to keep me warm enough. But my poor husband, and he radiate heat. I don't know. That thing with guys is totally weird. And one of my dogs
Yeah.
does it as well. Like he's a radiator and he wants to spoon, and it's like, no, because also I'm menopausal. Like, go away. I sometimes even want to kick the sheets off. Then it's the window open, and poor guy is wearing a trackie to bed, top and pants, and he's shivering. But God love him, he puts up with me. But yeah, okay. So cooler is better. So for anyone who comes to my house, oh my God, she's got the thermostat down so low, which they often do. Comment. This is the reason why I'm preparing
Yeah.
myself for a hygienic sleep.
That's it.
Now I
That's
can
it. No,
tell you. Oh, that's
absolutely.
funny.
No. Mm.
So just to wrap up today, Beccy, you have a business in Australia, so you make your own candles. I know you coach women and have workshops as well. For instance, candle making workshops. And I was on your site before and I thought, oh, I wish, if I was in Victoria, I would come along to one, because I think there would be nothing better than making your own safe, non-toxic candle that's just going to smell absolutely beautiful. So if you can just share with our listeners what you do offer in your business in case they would like to be contacting you.
Yeah, absolutely. So in my business, I do offer the essential oil candles. And just on that note, in terms of if you were here, you would. I'm thinking about potentially doing some Zoom classes. That's something
Wow.
that I could, but I would need to partner with someone, say where you are, to make sure that you're able to source all of the raw ingredients from a reputable. Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's definitely an idea that I've got for at
Yeah.
some point in the future. But for the
Perfect.
moment, I have my essential oil candles. I have a counselling practice that I support people who are navigating some transitions or change or stress, or it's symptoms of anxiety or depression. So all of the things that you might go and see a therapist or a counsellor for. And then I also have my women's health coaching package, which is a one-to-one bespoke coaching experience that runs for 90 days, where I support women going through that transition into the second half of their lives. And we use, so really looking at the wellness. So, all of, if they're experiencing any kind of perimenopause or menopausal symptoms or distress in that way, we're looking at their wellness to start with. And then we're looking at the mindset. And so all of the stories that they might be telling themselves or have absorbed from our society about what being in the second half of their lives actually means for you, and unpicking some of the negativity around that, and really flipping the script on that, and supporting women to see that this is a glorious time. It's a time to be celebrated, and it's a time where we can really deeply sink into the truth of who we are in an authentic way. So really unpicking that. Yeah.
I love that. That made me feel really, I don't know, just really centered when you said that. That's fantastic. Well, I just want to thank you so much for jumping on today. And I'm so glad we got to do this again. 3 cheers for us. They don't do that hip hip hooray thing after birthday cake, after happy birthday to you in the US, just to let you know.
Oh, really?
So I've taught my friends here in the neighborhood that after we finish singing happy birthday, we have to do 3 hip hip hoorays. And now, God love them. Now I kind of force it down their throat a bit, but they are picking up some Australian customs. So, but yes, 3 cheers for us that we got this episode together. And I want to thank you so much. And I do encourage anyone who's listening to go and visit Beccy's website. First things first, it's just a beautifully done website, and she has lovely things. And it's really important at this stage in life, I think, to come to understand what is toxic in our lives, whether it's food or our own negative self talk, or it's fragrances or cleaning products or anything that we are doing or using that is detrimental to our own well being. And when we are detrimental to our own well being, it prevents us from reaching that level of joy, which is our rightful state in life, and which we all have the opportunity to reach. So, thank you so much. All the very best. I'm sure we will be speaking again soon, Beccy.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to have this chat. I've loved every minute of it always.
No worries. Well, to all our listeners and viewers, thank you so much. It's been great having you here, and we'll connect with you next time on Fly Mum Fly.